I'm here today with Charlesem McCorkellem, the chair of Irish brand of Arboricultural Association. I'm really happy to be here with you. Thank you for granting me this time. Can you tell me please what inspired you to transition from a career of multimedia programming to arboriculture?
I don't know if it's as much of inspiring as falling in, to be perfectly honest. When I left school I went into multimedia programming and sort of did a 3-year degree in it, but it was more, I sort of fell into that as well as I didn't really know what to do, you know. And after doing the degree in that, I ended up doing a short course in AutoCAD and then working for engineers in electrical and mechanical engineers for a couple of years. And then following that we had the recession. And that's where I sort of started to deviate from that element of it and go into horticulture and landscaping, and was working with my sister's a landscape architect, so I started drafting for her, and then started going into, I first did a certificate in the botanical gardens in Dublin on horticulture, and then from there went over, got an interest in trees from there because it opened my eyes to everything, like, you know, from everything, all types of plants, and then went over to Myerscough and did the degree. So it was a long process to go from multimedia programming to a sort of a drafting to arboriculture. But a brilliant decision in the end.
Not sorry. Yeah, that's cool. Could you share some of most significant projects you worked on during your time at Moya Associates?
I was thinking, that's a really good question. I was thinking about this. There's so many. I worked in such a variety of projects in Tim's, and very contrasting to what I work with nowadays in Ireland. So when I first started in Tim's, I was doing a lot of tree surveying for tree risk, and then after about a year I got into the planning and development side. So we would be working on very challenging projects in London City with basements and with big plane trees and stuff like that. So they were excellent. And then on the other side of that you would be working on care home developments in different parts of England. It was in Birmingham or Bristol. But I think probably the one that stands out to me the most was one I worked on in Edgbaston, and it was one, we weren't involved in the planning side of it, it was more the construction side of it and managing the trees. And that was, I was so green to everything that I learned so much in that project. Like from with the tree protection, it was in conservation areas, it was very challenging and very stressful, I must add, because I was so new to it, and you had the responsibility. You felt like it was all on you with these big mature trees, like, you know. But learning how to communicate with developers and different design teams, and yeah, that's one that really would stand out to me.
What motivated you to establish your own consultancy practice in 2017, and how has the journey been since then?
I can say I've always aspired to set up my own business. I think it was more when I worked over in London with Tim Moy Associates. I loved working with that company, and I loved working in London. I think it was more I wanted to come back to Ireland, and me and my wife were both living in London at the time, and me more so wanted to come back to Ireland. I'd been in England probably for between London and Preston for maybe about 7 years then, and I just felt like I needed to come back here, and there wasn't many companies over here to work for, so it was more a question of, if you're going to come back, you're going to have to set up. And there was an opportunity it's not that I didn't want to do it either, there was an opportunity to do so. There was very few consulting arborists over here, so a question of the opportunity being there, and yeah, the wanting to come back and work here.
And back to the planning and development, what are the most common mistakes developers make by the tree protection?
Mistakes is probably not getting it installed quick enough and early enough at a project site. I've had meetings, pre-commencement meetings about tree protections, and then still when you get to site, somebody's been in with a digger before they even put the fence up. So it seems to be that sort of an educational cross-communication between the disciplines to sort of really hammer it in that that's the first thing that needs to happen, you know, because
here in these conditions you use the British standard for defining.
Yeah, we use
process.
BS 5837. Yeah.
And is it common to accept that document?
That is the accepted document here because it's the only standard that we have at present to work from. That is what the local authorities request in their development plans, that any sort of arboricultural protection plans are in accordance with the British standard. Like the arboricultural reports are one of many reports that they receive and don't necessarily respect. Very, very seldom do, to be honest. Which is yeah, it's improving, but of course it could be better and needs to be better.
Could you explain the significance of your Lantra Professional Tree Inspector qualification in your consultancy work?
Lantra it's a 3-day course of where you go looking at trees and learning how to assess trees and write reports for trees. You know, I did the Lantra after maybe working in the industry for a number of years. It makes you look at all the different aspects that you need to consider when you're assessing trees for risk. So taking into consideration not only the risk element of around the tree, but also the health of the tree and what is good for it, as well as the environment that it's within. We were obviously carrying out, before the course came about, we were carrying out tree assessments anyhow, but one thing that it did teach me was how important the detail is. You know, and how to be very specific and how to maybe structure reports more so for individual tree reports than I would say managing and to do with tree populations or anything.
Where do you see the future of arboricultural consultancy heading in Ireland?
The future, what I hope is going to happen is that we start getting more tree officers within local authorities and getting more funding through local authorities, which will then, I believe, have a knock-on effect and start to maybe enhance the consultancy element of it and the practice in arborist side of it as well. At the moment, I think we've got three officers. That's a mouthful, yeah, in the country. So and they've only come about in the last sort of maybe five years or so, you know, which is good to have 3, but we need more, you know, and I think that's how it steps on and improves across the board.
What advice would you give to a young professional entering the field of arboriculture?
Knowledge is key. Keep reading, keep learning, keep an open mind. You know, I think it's the one thing that was said to me when I left college, like, you know, this is only the start. You don't know everything. You only know a tiny proportion. You have to keep learning, keep researching. Yeah, and reflecting on past work, I think, is one of the biggest elements of it, to be able to learn and improve going forward.
You are a representative of the Irish branch of Arboricultural Association and the deputy to the European Arboricultural Council. In your view, what are the main benefits that these organizations bring to the arboriculture community in Ireland?
Again, connections with other European representatives and people in the industry, which to be able to bring and discuss their bring their expertise over here and see what they're doing in different countries. For a long time, we would be very much associated with what is going on in the UK and in the US. And one of the biggest things that the EAC has brought to us is that, you know, that opens up the field to people like yourself in the Czech Republic or in the Netherlands or Belgium, which is brilliant, because everybody needs to be talking and learning, and that's how it all advances, isn't it? Researching.
Can you describe the plans of your branch?
Going forward, yeah, wanting to run more events. Well, one of the things that we're trying to do at the moment is we're trying to get at least one practical event and one practical event for contracting arborists and another event maybe more geared towards local authorities and the consultant side, at least once a year, and going forward I really want to get a national conference. We've never had a national conference for arboriculture in Ireland, and that is one of the big aspirations. That and maybe doing some sort of an arb show. One thing at a time now. I think so. We'll have a look. We'll see what we can do next year. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of voluntary work, as you know yourself. So, yeah, but that's where I want to see things going, and have more involvement in the EAC going forward. You know, that's
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. That was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and thank you for coming.